Close your eyes for a moment before you begin. Not yet to sleep, just to notice something. Notice the sentence running quietly underneath everything you do tonight. There is always one running. Most people never hear it because it has been playing so long it sounds like truth instead of habit. Tonight you are going to hear it, and tonight you are going to begin to change it. What you're about to learn is old. It was known before it had a name, practiced by people who never called it anything at all. They simply noticed that the words repeated to oneself night after night, in a relaxed and receptive state, eventually stop sounding like words and start sounding like fact. 21 nights is not a magic number. It is simply how long it tends to take for a new sentence to outlast an old one. If this reaches you tonight, at whatever hour you are hearing it, let it be the first of those 21. There is a principle that has held true for as long as people have paid attention to their own minds. The mind does not distinguish with much precision between a fact you have proven and a sentence you have repeated with feeling, often enough, in a state calm enough for the words to sink past argument. This is not mysticism. It is simply how a mind that runs on repetition works. Say a thing to yourself once, and it is a thought passing through. Say it 100 times in the quiet minutes before sleep when the analytical, arguing part of you has gone soft and unguarded, and it begins to behave like a belief. Not because you tricked yourself, but because belief was never anything more than a thought you kept. This is why the sentences you inherited matter so much. Most of us did not choose our starting sentences. We absorbed them from a tired parent's offhand comment, from a failure we took too personally at 9 years old, from a culture that profits when you feel not enough. I'm bad with money. I always self-sabotage. People like me don't get the good breaks. These were said to you or near you or by you in a low moment, and then repeated without your permission thousands of times simply because no replacement sentence was ever offered. A belief is not evidence. A belief is a rerun. The principle, stated plainly, is this. Whatever sentence you deliberately and calmly repeat to yourself, especially in the drowsy minutes before sleep and the first waking minutes of morning, when the critical mind is thinnest, will eventually take root as something closer to instinct than thought. It will start to shape which opportunities you notice, which risks feel survivable, which excuses you reach for and which you refuse. This is not about chanting something you don't believe and hoping volume will convince you. It is quieter than that. It is choosing one honest, specific, achievable sentence and giving it the 21 nights it needs to become furniture in your mind instead of a guest. Now, the honest part, not a story about someone else. You already know what it feels like when the old sentence runs. It shows up at 11 at night when you are lying there doing math you don't want to be doing, converting your worth into a bank balance, and coming up short. It shows up as the flinch before you check an account, or send an invoice, or ask for what the work is actually worth. It shows up as the specific tiredness of feeling like you are always one step behind people who seem to have started somewhere easier than you did. None of that is weakness. It is just an old recording still playing because nothing was ever consciously put in to replace it. And here is the part almost nobody says honestly. Changing that recording is not a single dramatic moment. It rarely feels like anything at all on any given night. You will say your new sentence on night 4 and feel nothing. No shift, no lightness, possibly even a flicker of this is silly. That flicker is not proof it isn't working. It's proof the old sentence is still stronger tonight than the new one, which is simply where you are on night 4. Persistence here isn't emotional intensity, it's return. Coming back to the same sentence, same time, same quiet, even when it feels like nothing, is the entire mechanism. Nothing more dramatic is required of you than that, so here is something small and doable, not a program, not a purchase. 3 practices you can actually keep. First, before you close your eyes tonight, choose one sentence, not 5. 1. Something specific and slightly ahead of where you currently stand, but not so far ahead it feels like a lie. I make clear, calm decisions about money lands better than I am a millionaire. Because your mind has to at least be able to imagine it's plausible before it will let the sentence in. Say it slowly, 5 or 6 times in the dark without urgency. Second, in the morning, before you check a single notification, say the same sentence once, out loud or under your breath, before your feet even hit the floor. This is the other soft hour, the one right after waking when the guarded, arguing mind hasn't fully switched on yet either. Third, once during the day, attach the sentence to something you already do without thinking. Brushing your teeth, waiting for coffee, the first red light on your drive. Repeat it there too. You are not adding effort to your day. You are borrowing 2 minutes you already spend on autopilot and putting something better into them. Do this for 21 nights, honestly, without needing to feel a shift, and something quieter than a miracle happens. The old sentence starts losing its automatic quality. you start to notice it playing, which is different from being run by it. That noticing is the entire beginning of change, not fireworks, just distance between you and a sentence that used to feel like fact. I choose the sentence I repeat, and I choose it on purpose now. There is a kind of stillness that has nothing to do with getting what you want and everything to do with trusting the process of becoming who you're meant to be. Call it faith, call it surrender, call it simply relaxing your grip on the outcome for long enough to let the deeper part of you do its slow work. Every wisdom tradition that has lasted more than a generation has in some form pointed to this same quiet fact. The parts of us that grow the most are rarely the parts we force. A seed is not shouted into growing. It is planted, watered with something as unglamorous as consistency, and left mostly in darkness to do what it already knows how to do. You do not have to understand exactly how repeated calm belief reorganizes a life. You only have to keep planting the same seed in the same quiet ground night after night and trust an order larger and older than your impatience. There is a story often told about a man who spent 7 years trapped on a life raft and later in a series of brutal prison camps, kept alive as much by sentences as by anything else. Louis Zamperini, an Olympic distance runner before the war, survived weeks adrift in the Pacific and years of captivity that broke stronger men than him in body. What is remembered less often than the physical ordeal is the discipline of his mind during it, the way he and the men beside him kept themselves oriented not by hope alone, but by deliberately repeated thought. Fixed images of home, recited memories, small private sentences said again and again to hold off despair, when despair would have been the easier, faster choice. He did not survive because circumstances were kind to him. They were not. He survived in significant part because he trained his mind under unbearable pressure to keep returning to a chosen thought instead of the one that would have finished him. Years later, the hardest part of his story was not the raft or the camps. It was learning afterward to replace the sentences the war had left behind with new ones, deliberately, patiently, over time. His life became a long-lived demonstration that the mind can be retrained even after the worst has already happened, if a person is willing to keep choosing which sentence gets repeated. I return to my chosen sentence even on the nights it feels like nothing. There is an old teaching kept for centuries in various forms across quiet monasteries and desert retreats about a student who came to an elder complaining that his mind would not settle no matter how hard he tried to force it still. The elder did not tell him to fight the noise. He gave him a single short phrase and told him only this: say it gently every time you notice your mind has wandered, not with frustration, simply as a way of coming home. Not once, not 10 times, for as long as it takes. The student expected a trick, a technique, something clever. There was none. There was only the plain instruction to return, again and again, to the same few words, until the words themselves became the quiet place he had been searching for. This is, in its own language, the same law you are practicing tonight. Not forcing stillness, but returning to a chosen word until the word becomes the ground you stand on. I am becoming, one calm repetition at a time, the version of myself I have chosen. Somewhere past the middle of a longer path than this single night, there are always further steps waiting for those who want to keep walking. Quiet guidance held below for whenever you're ready to go deeper. As you drift now, notice the sentence you are carrying into sleep. Let it be the one you chose, not the one that chose you years ago without your permission. 21 nights is not long. It is a handful of weeks, most of which you were going to sleep through anyway. All that is asked of you is that you show up honestly night after night and hand your mind something better to repeat than what it has been repeating on its own. I speak calmly to my own mind, and my mind in time believes me. You do not have to feel different tonight. You do not have to feel anything at all. You only have to say the sentence quietly and let sleep take for you can argue with it. Somewhere further along, more of this is waiting for whenever you choose to return. For now, there is only this. One sentence spoken gently into a mind finally willing to listen. Say it once more, then let it go, and let the dark do the rest. Right now, the sentence is already at work.